1. So for a little context, this story is not mine. This happened to my father in the 80s and the 90s. But I will write in first person because English is hard. In the 80s, I lost everything I could. I dropped out of college, my father died of a heart attack, and my mother was somewhere in the wind. I wasn't worth the air I was breathing. As a last effort, I saved up some money to move to a different state so that I could start fresh. I chose Montana to be my new home. Because I didn't have a college degree, I knew I could only make a living with my hands and not my head. After a bit of looking around, I found work on a ranch. The owner of the ranch, Jack, took me under his wing. He taught me how to ride a horse, how to herd, how to do cutting, roping, and many other useful skills on a ranch. My goal was to have enough money for a deposit so I could buy a horse, or at least some land. After about 3 years, I had the money, but I loved the ranch and the folks so much that I chose to stay longer. In the spring of '88, I finally made the decision to quit. I was fully honest with Jack about what my intentions were. I told him that I wanted to buy some land to have a ranch of my own and potentially get married and start a family. Being the absolute champ, Jack offered me some contacts of people who were selling land. After some time, I chose a piece of land near Jack's ranch. I got a loan, bought the land, and in the summer I started building my house. By winter, the house was done, and it was planned that in the spring I'll build a barn and some fences, corrals among others. In the spring, it was back to work, and before summer started, I had nothing to do. I had a lot of time on my hands while I was waiting for all the paperwork to be done, and I wasn't going to spend 2 weeks sitting on my porch doing nothing when Jack promised me that if I would ever need it, he would give me a job. Now, I didn't need a job because of money, but I just didn't have anything to do. So I went to my good old friend Jack if he needed some help. He said that he could use me to guide people on the tours he was offering. His ranch is not only in the cattle business, he also offers tours of the pristine nature on his property. I happily accepted the job, despite me not liking people, but still, it was better than just sitting on my front porch and doing nothing. The first few days went without a problem. Then a wild Karen appeared to brighten up the day. I was just returning from a tour when I saw this Karen in the middle of the field yelling at this girl who was also a guide. I didn't know the girl, but in my books, whoever makes a girl cry is an a-hole. I came over to them, and in the most passive-aggressive voice I can, I say, "Good day, what seems to be the problem?" And the Karen's wrath was now aimed at me, and she yelled back,
"This bitch has no respect for the desires of the customer. Give me a manager now."
Now, I didn't expect such strong wording, but I kept my cool despite my hot-headedness, and I came up to the girl who's now sobbing because this Karen was mouthing off to her pretty good. And I say to her, "Leave her to me. I'll take care of her. You go take a break and tell Jack that I'll be with this piece of work." She gives me a grateful smile and a nod and rides away. I go to the Karen and I say to her, "Ma'am, I can't get you the manager as he's busy right now, but if you want, I can be your guide in her stead for the remainder of the tour." She replies very politely by saying,
"Sure, I think even the trees will be better than that bitch."
Every part of my hot-headed self wants me to pretty much bury this woman right then and there, but I keep my cool, and we head off on the tour. And within the first minute, what a piece of work she truly is. She behaves like she knows best and everyone is lesser than her, and everything should be given to her. When we were about to turn around and go back, I gave her a choice. We could either go the official route, or we could return by the unofficial route, which is shorter. But there were bear sightings reported in the past few days. I tell her that the unofficial route is quite dangerous, but just as I wanted her to do so, she vehemently objects because she is the wisest person alive and knows the best. Great, my trap had worked. After about 5 miles of this unofficial route, she starts screaming and turns so pale that she is even more white than paper. In the distance, there is a grizzly. I knew about the danger I had dragged both of us into, but in the end, it was technically her choice to go that route. I tell her to make herself as big and loud as she can. I follow suit. But the bear keeps getting closer. It keeps growling at us. With every growl, Karen was getting even more pale. After it gets way too dangerous, I shoot a round out of my rifle, and the bear gets scared and runs away into the woods. The entire ride back, she keeps yelling at me that I put her intentionally in so much danger. And yes, I'll admit, it was quite reckless taking a visitor into a part of the woods where there were bear sightings reported. But technically, she made the decision to go that route. I stay silent the entire ride because I can't keep a straight face. I was laughing maniacally in my head, and I knew that if I looked at her, I would start laughing out loud. When we returned, she was shaking violently and was pale as ever. After I tied up her horse, she demanded that I get her the manager, and I gladly point her to the little building in the distance, and she storms off. She starts yelling at Jack, and I can see that Jack is trying his hardest not to break out laughing. I could hear that she was demanding that I be fired, but the neat part was I wasn't an employee of Jack's. I was doing it as a favor for a friend, and thus I couldn't be fired. After the Karen's tirade ends, Jack comes to me laughing like a kid, and he asks me, "How did you even come up with that, OP?" I start giggling as well and answer, "Well, she made the girl cry, so I wanted to give her special treatment. I heard of the bear sightings, and it worked out well in my favor." He then asks me not to do that again, as it was reckless, and I agree, and I tell Jack, "I don't plan on doing it again. But I had a plan if the bear mauled the damn wretch. My defense would be that I gave her the choice to go on a safer path. But because she was apparently of higher intellect than me, I simply agreed." Jack gives me a smile and heads off. Years later, my father would end up meeting that girl guide again. Her name was Abby. Nowadays, I simply call her Mom. 2. I am a 34-year-old man. I work for a company famous for being anti-union, pro-insurrectionist sympathizers, having 2 registers open with lines longer than the drive-through lines at Chick-fil-A. The part of the store I work on is OGP as a dispenser. And during the fall, when it's chilly out, we were allowed to wear our hoodies outside, along with heavy coats in the winter. Last week, a rule was implemented saying we are no longer allowed to wear hoodies. Alright, no problem, so I started wearing my heavy winter coat as a substitution, which still had a hood. One of my immediate supervisors, Karen, tells me that my heavy winter coat still violates the no hood rule and had to tuck it in. I had a better idea because it was malicious compliance time. So I hung my heavy winter coat up and pulled out my beanie, as that was the only way to stay warm, since no one was allowed to wear any form of winter clothing unless it was hoodless. The first day I saw myself in the two-way mirror, I couldn't help but think about the SpongeBob episode, Can You Spare a Dime?, pantomiming myself shaking a tin can asking, "Spare change." Most parents in my generation will know what I'm talking about with the joke. Anyway, back to the story. I started going out in close to freezing temperatures, and some of the delivery drivers started asking me where's my coat. I couldn't help but be honest when they learned we weren't allowed to wear either hoodies or coats with hoods. And they wouldn't make exceptions for cart pushers and dispensers. This went on for about a week until, as of today, we got an update on the no coat with hood rule. Now dispensers are allowed to wear hooded coats outside again when dispensing, as long as safety is visible. I don't know what sparked the sudden change, but I want to think I had something to do with it when telling our delivery drivers and customers about the ridiculous rule change. Knowing this company would rather donate to keep insurrectionist sympathizers in office over having to pay out a possible class action suit. 3. I work for my country's customs administration. We basically do what you would expect. Anything that comes into my country is subject to duties, levies, and taxes. and the goods can be inspected to ensure all the paperwork filed actually conforms with reality. Certain differences exist between private and commercial goods. Most private goods are not subject to customs duties, exceptions being meat, alcohol, tobacco, and a few other products. But other than that, customs law applies in every aspect to both commercial and private entities crossing the border, meaning that many regulations, usually reserved for truck drivers and professionals, can easily be applied when it comes to private individuals. This was something a particularly nasty traveler had to realize when he bumped heads with my supervisor. I was working a night shift at a rather small border station in the north of my country, where me, a colleague, and my superior had activated an irregularly manned border station. Not all border stations are permanently manned, and opening a border station outside of its assigned working hours is referred to as activating it. It was 03:40 in the morning, and we didn't see too many cars. The ones that crossed over were foreigners who drove into our country for work. Many of them lived in the border region, knew the procedures, and played ball. Some were friendly, some a bit grumpy. Unsurprising if you have to get up that early. But all of them did as we asked. Show some identification, answer our questions about what's in your vehicle, and maybe endure us taking a look inside. And then it arrived. A black Porsche Cayenne. Until then, I didn't even know that Porsche made SUVs. In the Porsche was Mark. Mark basically looked like Christian Bale looked while playing Patrick Bateman in the movie American Psycho. The suit, the haircut, his briefcase. Everything indicated that he had money and wanted people to know about it. Which is fine. People should enjoy having nice things, and signaling is a part of social interaction. We treat everyone the same, and we expected this encounter to go as uneventfully as the previous ones. Boy, were we wrong. We nicely asked him for his ID or passport, which he handed over. We then asked Mark what he was transporting in the car. When he stopped, we saw that there were several cardboard boxes in the trunk and on the back seat, which he answered with, "I don't see how that's any of your business." Bad mistake. It was, in fact, not only our business, but the very nature of our job. And since Mark had not only failed to answer, but had also failed the attitude test, we ordered him to open the trunk. He got out of the car and opened his mouth again. "I will open the trunk, but just so you know, I want this done by the book. You touching my stuff is unacceptable to begin with. So if you damage anything, or I find as much as a smudge, I will put you in a world of hurt. Now confirm that you understood me. Now." At this point, my superior stepped forward. "We have understood you quite well. Now, I just need to know whether you were serious when you said that you want this to be done by the book. Can you confirm that you want this done by the book?" Mark then sealed his fate by answering in the affirmative, upon which my superior updated him on the situation. "Splendid. According to customs law, the person crossing the border is responsible for opening and unloading the vehicle he or she drives. Must unpack all containers, present the goods for inspection, repackage them, and reload the vehicle. When it comes to non-commercial crossings, we usually do all that, as not to inconvenience private travelers. But since you want this done by the book, you will have to do it. Failure to comply allows me to keep you and your vehicle at this border station for as long as I want. Any kind of resistance allows me to restrain you. And now get to work, and make sure you don't accidentally damage your own car or its contents." Mark then had to lift several cardboard boxes filled with all kinds of personal items. It appears he was moving apartments into the border station, had to unpack all of them, lay out the contents piece by piece for inspection, repackage everything, and reload his car. Had he simply answered that the boxes contained nothing significant, we would have taken a quick glance into the trunk, and he would have been on his way after 3 minutes. This way, the whole procedure took 35 minutes, and left some nice sweat stains on Mark's shirt. He filed a complaint. The complaint was dismissed, since everything was done by the book. 4. Long story short, I used to teach culinary school. Fun job, and I loved the students, but the pay was awful, and the owners and leaders were complete self-centered dicks. The 2 founders were all about themselves, and would make these jokey, cringe-worthy speeches about how great they were to every incoming class, and one even put up a quote from himself in the student dining room. Everything was cool as long as you never took the limelight away from them and accepted the crappy pay. To add insult to injury, I accepted the low pay with a handshake agreement with them that if I was successful we could revisit my compensation after 6 months. Well, 6 months came, I had great reviews, and I asked for a salary increase, and was told there was no money to be had. I wasn't happy, but liked the job. Then a few weeks later, these geniuses decide to have a staff meeting where they're going to educate us about the business. It was a for-profit school, something I regret getting involved in. When I saw the margins they were taking off of each student, it was shocking. They were enriching themselves and crying poverty. And one of the founders had the audacity to take a 6-week vacation to Maui right after this meeting because he was too stressed out or something. A little back-of-the-envelope math, and I worked out that these guys were probably each pulling $300K a year out of this, and paying us $32K a year, with no benefits and raises. Anyway, just like the rest of the staff, I was having trouble making ends meet on my salary, so I go pick up some food writing jobs. I'm not a terribly great writer, but apparently between my average cooking skills and mediocre writing ability, I start making better money doing that than teaching, and I built up a bit of a reputation in my small part of the world. I'm just trying to make ends meet, but this set the owners off because they didn't want any competition for the limelight. All of a sudden, I'm getting nitpicked about everything. They get super insecure and start complaining about weird things, and suddenly one day I'm laid off. Not a fun day, but it is what it is. They say the program isn't financially viable. This is a few months after showing me and all the other staff how much they're making. But the next Monday my replacement starts, which rubs a little salt in the wounds. Anyway, I start getting calls from colleagues supporting me, and I'm honest and say it's bullshit, but whatever, and I'm moving on. And it should die there, right? But it doesn't. These fuckers try to contest my unemployment, they laid me off, and took it to administrative court and everything and made up a story that I was fired for cause. I win that easily. Pro tip, always keep termination paperwork. And then I keep getting really close on replacement jobs, but can't quite seal the deal. I get a little suspicious, so I call a friend and have him call over there for a reference, and guess what? They are not only giving me a bad reference and saying that they fired me for cause, they are also saying I'm lying about my dates of employment and that I only worked there a month. So I lawyer up, get into some nasty back and forth, but I win again. Now, if I was listening to this, I'd be thinking, what did this guy do? He must have done something. I bet he fucked someone's wife or stole money or something. That's the crazy thing. The only thing I'm guilty of is outshining the founders in their own eyes. Just bonkers. So after firing me, laying me off, contesting my unemployment, and screwing with my references, what's a guy to do? Well, first I decided to wait several months. I took that time to memorize their personal details. Fast forward a year and I have a great job, way better pay, and I don't work for psychos. I'm on a business trip, and I see a church of Scientology. Boom, perfect. Somehow I know that if you ever give money to those nuts, they consider you a member of the church, and will call and harass you for the rest of your life. So I walk in, pretend I'm curious, sit through the most boring presentation in my life, take some test and listen to them drone on about how Scientology will make me smart and popular and a chain smoker or something. I tell them I'm in. Where do I sign? Now they want me to take some class and it's like $300, but I don't like these fuckers and I'm not forking over $300 to be petty. So, I give them all of one of the founders' info. Address, cell phone, date of birth, which was way off, but they don't seem to notice or care, email, spouse's name, everything. I grab a book off the shelf, ask how much it is, $25 I think, make an excuse for why I can't take a class, but buy the book and promise to be back in a week to sign up for the class. And now, founder number 1 is a proud paid member of the Church of Scientology. Hail Tom Cruiser, something like that. I've now done this 3 times at 3 different churches of Scientology. 3 founders down and 1 more to go. It's always boring and man, those Scientologists stink of cigs like no one. But it's my petty revenge for fucking me over at that job. 5. Several years ago, I coached a kids' soccer team. It was a community recreation league with volunteer coaches and a focus on fun and equal playing time. There were 2 fields next to a school. The third field is a 2-minute walk away and hidden behind a thick stand of trees invisible from the 2 fields. One would never know it was there, but did have a small parking lot next to it accessible only, but by a rarely used, poorly maintained back lane. Most people would park in the school lot and walk the 2 minutes along the path through the trees. The 2 fields next to the school were typical school fields. Not particularly well maintained, uneven, and definitely not regulation-sized. Typical school fields. The third field was regulation-sized, perfectly maintained, had new bleachers, and was maintained like a professional field with regular waterings, cutting, and seating. It was the groundskeeper's pride and joy. It was the first day of the new season, and my team of 10-year-olds, the Brown Pandas, our t-shirts were brown with pandas on them, showed up for our first practice. Except there was another team on our assigned field. A team of talented players with matching socks and shorts. We're all wearing cleats and in their late teens. I approached the coach and explained that he was on our field and that his field was a 2-minute walk away down the path. He politely told me to take a hike. He was there first, and that was that. So, not looking for a confrontation, I took my team to the really nice field. The parents had bleachers to sit in, and we had a great time on the big kid field. After the practice, the groundskeeper convener asked me why we were practicing on this field. I told her what happened with the other coach. She told me she asked the other coach to switch field also. He told her to get stuffed, and that was his field. 2 days later, at our second practice, his team was on our field again. The convener called me over to talk to her and the other coach. She stated, "Just to confirm, for the rest of the season, you are switching fields with the Brown Pandas on the far field and your team on this field here?"
"Yeah, this is our field, and the little kids will be on the far field."
He looked at us arrogantly. "Fine by me," I stated, grabbed my big net sack of balls and trudged over to the professional field. 2 glorious weeks passed when, during practice, the other coach came over with his team and saw our field. He approached me and told me that we needed to switch fields. I laughed in his face. "Go get the convener over so we can discuss." I turned my back on him and probably did something like tie a kid's shoe or dry some tears. Remember, they were 10-year-olds. His team started trying to use our field. One of the Brown Pandas was scared of the bigger kids and started crying. A couple of parents stepped in and started shooing them away before one of the 10-year-olds got hurt. He returned with his entire team and the convener. She was beaming. She asked him if he remembered our conversation of 2 weeks ago. He started to argue. She told him that we were keeping with the terms of that agreement and to go back to his own field. "Go on, scoot," I remember her saying. We had our first game the next week. All the Brown Panda parents were in attendance, watching their children playing soccer on a beautiful field with semi-comfortable seating and a working scoreboard. As we left, we walked by the other team playing on a muddy, undersized field. They eventually changed their game dates and times so they could use the big field, but had to practice on the old field. The brown pandas never had to set foot on the older field all season. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 339. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do poke the like button if you would. And if you want early access to these videos, no problem. Just click on the link to my Patreon in the description. You can support me there for as little as $1 a month. It all helps. And you'll also find a link to the Hellfreezer merchandise store on Teespring. And if you especially enjoyed today's video, you'd like to leave a tip for it, you can do so by clicking on the heart with a $sign beneath the video. And you don't have to do that, but I appreciate it. Okay. No other business today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question and answer of the day. And today's question is: what is your favorite song of the moment? The one you listen to the most, the one you put on repeat. Right now mine, and it's been a favorite of mine for a while, is Motion Sickness by Phoebe Bridgers. In fact, that whole album, Stranger in the Alps, is very good. I do recommend it. But I look forward to reading what yours are in a comment below. Maybe I'll find something cool I haven't heard of yet. And before we go, let's have the answer of the day from a previous video. And today's answer comes from Revenge is Ice Cream 337. And that comes from Deeper Things. What music takes me back to high school? I spent most of high school making music. I was in 7 choir classes during 4 years of high school. Every summer I played sax in a community marching band, tenor or baritone. One summer I marched with both, one song on each side and switching as needed. And then there were the school musicals and, of course, popular music of the day. So, what music takes me back? Poulenc's Gloria, Fauré's Requiem, Handel's Messiah, Humperdinck's Hansel und Gretel, Gilbert and Sullivan, Rodgers and Hammerstein. The music from the Fantastics, Kismet, Brigadoon the Music Man, the theme from the Pink Panther, our band's signature piece. More along the lines you were looking for, you see, he does actually know what he's doing. Blondie, Billy Idol, David Bowie, The Police, INXS, Human League, Bon Jovi, Kool and the Gang, Air Supply, Lionel Richie, Asia, Adam Ant, The Clash, Roxette, John Cougar before he was Mellencamp, Donna Summer, REO Speedwagon, ELO, A Flock of Seagulls, Duran Duran, Pet Shop Boys, Cyndi Lauper, Styx, Dexy's Midnight Runners. How long have you got? I can keep going. Did I mention that I love music? Sadly, well, I won't say your name, but that's a secret. But sadly, Deeper Things, I think that's all the time we've got. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.